Recently, we were asking the question, why is it that younger voters are shifting towards the Republican Party? Why would someone like me? Well, I think a large reason is people like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is an independent voice. He's not right about everything, but he speaks in a way that is easy to absorb, to understand, and is honest. It's genuine. So when Joe gets something wrong, we say, well, he's wrong about that, but it's a legitimate conversation we're trying to have. It's like hanging out with your buddies and trying to understand what's happening. Now, there's good and there's bad here. The bad, in my opinion, is that too many people get news from their friends, sitting around hearing something passively. And if the root source is tainted, then the information they get is going to be bad. That being said, when someone absorbs information passively from a friend who watches MSNBC, they're being plagued. When someone absorbs information they passively get from listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, well, they may get things wrong. But the intention isn't to be wrong or to mislead or to deceive or steal power. And thus, it's not as big a deal. Really. Joe has this clip. This is from Kaneko the Great, who posted this. A Joe Rogan clip about immigration and the problems we're seeing. And Joe is talking about how, let me play a bit of the clip for you. He gets something wrong when he says they're allowing non-citizens to vote in New York, but he's mostly right. They passed the bill and it was blocked in the courts. And so who knows what will happen. But there are many jurisdictions that are allowing this to happen. If you're a young person who is listening to Joe Rogan Experience because he's a funny guy, he has fun conversations, and it's easy to understand, you are understanding what's going on in this world, and you are likely not going to be voting for Democrats. Let me play a little bit of this clip for you guys, and you'll hear it from Joe himself.
When you watch those migrants jump those cops and beat their ass, and then they got out of jail with no bail right away.
That's trouble.
That is wild.
I know, but it depends what your algorithm is.
And they're Tupac in the camera.
Yeah.
They Tupac the camera on the
What?
way out. Yes.
I didn't see this.
Yes. Apparently those guys have fled.
And they got released or deported?
They got released.
Oh, they're just back out.
Yeah, bro, they interviewed this one guy. I was watching this YouTube video, what's happening in these hotels. This one guy's been there for 7 months, and he said they give him a nice hotel. It's a nice room. He said it's real clean. They give him breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, and he's an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are poor. They're like, hey, what about my family? What about me? What about us Americans that live here, have always been here, born and raised here? And people just sneak in, and you're giving them all these things you won't give us. Why are you doing this? This is crazy. That's crazy.
Is it like a vote? Are they trying to get new voters or something?
I would imagine yes.
Yeah, but they're not going to be down with it. If you ever meet like a dude from Guatemala?
You can do it. They're doing it right now in New York City. In New York City, they're allowing illegal immigrants to vote.
Yeah.
So this is the point I was making. And I'm not trying to do a whole segment about how Joe Rogan was wrong about something. I'm trying to point out that if you're listening to what he's saying, you're going, what the? How is this happening? And he's mostly correct. Now, Kaneko the Great points out that as of, they say on June 27, 2022, the New York Supreme Court for Staten Island overturned the law stating it violated the state's constitution. In fact, it does more than that. It violates the constitution of this country to allow non-citizens to vote. Mayor Adams and the city council appealed to a higher court. The case is stuck in court, so we'll see where it goes. He says, meanwhile, President Biden is fast-tracking work authorizations for non-U.S. citizens, potentially giving them the right to vote if Mayor Adams succeeds in the appeal. Mayor Adams has a chance at winning. As of June 2023, more than a dozen communities across the U.S., including D.C., and municipalities in California, Maryland, and Vermont allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. In Connecticut, Democrats aim to amend the state's constitution to permit non-citizens to vote in local elections. In December, the Boston City Council approved a proposal allowing non-citizens with legal status to vote in local elections. Rogan points out that Democrats want to permanently change the voting demographics in the United States by importing as many votes as possible. And that is my point. This is why we're seeing the shift. It is the collapse of the narrative machine media. It is the rise of the independent voice and podcaster. And you cannot buy Joe Rogan. You can't. I mean, he might do a shout out for your ball trimmer or whatever. I'm not ragging on Rogan. He literally did this hilarious ad. Dude, it was one of the best ad reads ever done. So Joe Rogan, he does the ad reads for his show. And one of them was like a male grooming device. And he was like, he's reading the ad. I do ad reads too. And when you read it, you just read the script, right? Kind of, you give a little feel. You might put a little spin on it. But he was like, this groomer comes with a flashlight for late night grooming. And he goes, man, what? If you're grooming late at night in the dark, you got balls. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, my point is, the corporate press, they're going to cave to access. Joe Biden says, if you want to interview us and get the million views, you can't report this. And they say, you got it. Joe Rogan doesn't care. Rogan tells them, I don't want you on my show because he holds the power. That is the death of the corporate press and the rise of the independent media.
This is something is that true? Is that absolutely true? Let's make sure, because this is a big statement.
It is a big statement.
But I'm pretty sure that was one of the things that they were trying to do. They were trying to make it so that these people could be documented. And this is what they keep saying. The way to deal with the undocumented people is find a pathway for them to be documented. Sure. That's how we've always done it. It's legal immigration. Now, you might think legal immigration is too restrictive. Okay. But you can't just let anybody in because terrorists are a real thing. This is not like an imaginary, it's not like orcs. Like, we know terrorists are real.
So take a look at this. Kaneko points out, in 2017, 2 terrorists. I'm sorry, I should say suspects. The next year, 6. The next year was 0. 2020 was 3, then 15, then 98, now 169. So here's what it comes down to. Aside from pointing out these very obvious problems we're seeing, imagine what it must be like. You don't watch the corporate press anymore. They lied to you every step of the way. And then you watch Joe Rogan.
And they already caught that one guy where they asked the guy, like, who are you? He goes, you will know soon enough. And then they find out, okay, this guy's on a terrorist watch list and made it into America.
What a dumbass.
Yay.
Yeah. They're not going to vote left, though. These people coming from, like, South America and stuff are going to, like,
a lot of
read
them
the
will
issues.
because those are the people that got them in. Those are the people that are giving them money. Those are the people that are giving them free food, free...
You know what I love the most about the Joe Rogan experience? Well, first, shout out. Joe's back on all platforms. He made this announcement. So I don't know when exactly that starts, but this is great. It's good news across the board because it shows that Spotify is not concerned with the controversy around any of Joe's shows. But here's, 50. How old is Joe? He's like 50, right? Let me double check. He's 56. Joe, he's 56 years old. He's got these young guys who come on his show and they're like, aren't they like coming from South America? That's right. Let me tell you about it. So you got this dude who is one of the best comedians ever. If you've never seen a Joe Rogan show, you're missing out. The left will try and rag on him, but Joe had this really great bit when we saw him several years ago in Philly. It was awesome. Thanks, Joe, for inviting us to the show. It was really great. And it was a joke about cats and how they look out the window and they go, you ever see a cat? And they mutter. And he nails it. It's absolutely great comedy. It's not even political or anything. But here you have this dude. And he's basically like schooling these younger guys who are on his show and he's telling them about these serious issues.
True. Place to sleep. Wouldn't you vote for those people? Especially all you want to do is get a fucking job. And if you vote for these people and these people are going to allow you to be documented, you're going to be able to get a job and then continue to get social assistance, which has been pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Getting money and food and a place to live. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, but then
sometimes I watch, when I'm watching Rogan or seeing these clips, I'm like, did he watch IRL that night? Or like the night before? Like, because certainly, though, he's pointing out things that are not coming from us. I'm not saying, I'm just like, sometimes he'll be like, yeah, we watch, Rogan watches us, we watch Rogan. So shout out to Joe. He's, I'll say this for Joe right now. He's one of the most important journalists we have. And I genuinely mean it. And the corporate press will freak out about that. Taylor Lorenz made a video where she's like, Tim Pool, she was doing an interview, and she's like, Tim Pool doesn't do anything original. He just comments, and he's dishonest. And I'm like, wait. So she's saying, I read other people's news that they've done the reporting on, but that I'm dishonest. Well, what? If I'm commenting on someone else's story, what's dishonest about it? I guess if you're saying the fake news, the corporate press is writing fake news. But here's the important point. Taylor, I have bad news for you. I host a Friday morning interview show, which many of you may have seen this morning. And interviews are journalism. So thank you and have a nice day. You, on the other hand, make TikTok videos where you quite literally comment on things while complaining about other people commenting on things. And the funny thing is, too, it's an argument they try to make. Joe would certainly not call himself a journalist. I will. And it's true. When they say that, like, Tim Pool's not a journalist anymore, he hasn't done real journalism. What do you think I do all day when I'm fact-checking various stories, pulling news and information together, and then making a video where I discuss them? It is news and opinion. This is a fascinating thing they try to do to discredit those who would call out their lies. Snopes isn't journalism. They're just commenting on other people's news. Well, they're fact-checking, often wrongly. But yeah, it's journalism. It's just not good journalism. Joe Rogan on his show has interviews with people. That's journalism. Doesn't matter what your interview is. If Joe Rogan was only interviewing MMA fighters on his show, he would be a sports journalist. That's what it is. He is hosting a show where they talk about these ideas, and you are allowed to give your opinions and everything as well. The conversation happening is generating news, information, and understanding. This is the shift. As the corporate press undergoes this layoff bloodbath, this is the shift, and we are winning. I wanted to hit three things on this, really. One, the immigration crisis is true. Two, the demographics are changing and people are waking up to the news media. And three, Joe Rogan is basically been the linchpin for this. And we're lucky to have him back on all of the platforms. It was great that he was on Spotify and he had that deal. But seeing now that he'll be everywhere, this is going to be a tremendous shift at the best time imaginable. So shout out, Joe. I'm a big fan. I appreciate your work. Tremendous respect. It is Rogan. You know, if he never had me on his show, I don't know if, well, I'll put it this way. I've talked to Joe about this, and I've talked to a lot of people. You know, before I went on Joe's show, I had maybe like 300,000 followers. And afterwards, I had 1 million. It was crazy. Within the span of a couple months, it was like 600,000 on one channel and 300 on the other, and then like 100 scattered across, you know, very social platforms. But it was like 350 to 400 total. So on YouTube, I had 200 on one channel and like 100 on the other. Then I had like 100 on Twitter or something. I go on Joe's show, and it was nuts. Massive increase. Then we did the Twitter interview with Jack Dorsey, and it was massive. And so I owe a lot to Joe. Tremendous respect. He's basically led the way on all of this new media wave, and it's history. And we stand but on the shoulders of giants, of people much better at this than we are. And I will say this, with all due respect, I hope to one day reach the talent and ability and skill that Joe has when it comes to making a podcast, which I don't think we will. I think there will come a time when Joe retires. There will come a time when Timcast IRL is still on the air, and we can only hope to ever get as close as he got with the amazing shows that he's done. So thank you, Joe. Good work. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel, and we'll see you all then.